Welcome to the technology sector panel. We have marketing procurement leaders from Intuit, Zendesk, and Coupa represented today. My name is Sarah Scudder. I'll be moderating our discussion on the biggest challenges the panelists are currently facing, insights into opportunities, innovations, and what's coming next year in regards to marketing procurement for the tech sector. As I ask your first question to each panelist, make sure to introduce yourself and feel free to throw in some fun facts and make it interesting and exciting. So Jeff, I am going to kick off our discussion with you today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Ariz. I am the Director of Value Chain and Services, which includes strategic sourcing as well as supply chain operations. Work for Intuit, $7 billion company, growing fast, and our products are QuickBooks, TurboTax, as well as Mint. I have a signed autograph of Michael Strahan. Giants are my favorite team. I'm originally from Queens, so I always keep that near and dear right in the Zoom picture. And yeah, it's been a ride. I got my shirt on after 7 months, so that's a big feat. I'm usually in my t-shirt with 3 buttons, to look somewhat formal, but I got this on today, so I'm really, really happy.
Well, I feel special. You are dressed. Hopefully you're in flip-flops though, so you're
I am.
That's a very cool bookshelf you have going on there. Kudos to your wife.
Thank you so much.
So Jeff, I want to start off our discussion today talking about how the pandemic has impacted the way your team operates with its internal stakeholders and the key agencies and partners. I know there's been just a big shift in communication all around this year. So talk to us about that impact.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I feel like it was the perfect storm this year. You had your pipeline of things you want to do, your strategic angles that you're taking with the business, and then the pandemic hits, and then all hell breaks loose. Headcount is on freeze. We went through a round of layoffs. So what does that mean? It means more work, right? Like a lot of the folks, and especially in marketing, are not around anymore. It's handed off to new people, and there's more people that need the help. So the work really, I was talking to the team today, it's like they just said it's fast and furious. It's like, as a sourcing organization, we want to be involved early, but I think we're getting like a big dose of that we're having trouble keeping up with. And at the same time, you have a lot more regulatory and compliance issues around data and information, which makes it harder to get like, the operational side of things through. We're going through and modernizing our system that we haven't done before in ages. So I was talking to MVK about Coupa because we're in the middle of launching that in March. So I know who to secretly call if I'm frustrated now, right? Agency work, like, hey, I understand we are renegotiating, but here's a bunch of things that haven't been contracted before that we want in the contract. So it's just like, hey, you're negotiating something and it's like, hold on a second, there's 3 or 5 bodies of work that weren't in the contract before that we were happy to do, but now we want it in. So, there's different dynamics there. As you're dealing with, agencies are obviously virtual and everyone's trying to figure that out. We're trying to secure partners that will help with our internal events as well as our customer events. Partnerships, I think what's been great is just the ability to connect with more people in a different way, right? So you're not trying as hard to build relationships and stuff. It's just coming organically. I think everyone understands they're all in the same situation, noisy kids, taking calls, shuttling kids back and forth, but it opens up new conversations. I had a conversation with the head of marketing strategy, and we talked about, gosh, you segment your revenue partners, we segment our expense partners, and how should we take a look at that from an Intuit perspective? So we take a look at it end to end, in the marketing area. Ultimately, other than that, I'd say really busy. There's a lot of things that hit at once. My supply chain team is losing sleep because there's many changes because we're moving a portion of our product from disk to diskless. So there's just a lot of change going on And I will say, you hear well-being as one of the top things that we're tracking for people, and folks are just, spent.
Jeff, what have you found? You mentioned all these changes in communication with all these different stakeholders and agencies. What have you found something that's really worked well and been impactful to help with all this virtual communication and change around marketing procurement?
Yeah, so it's gotten a lot easier to have more meetings, right? It's less scheduled, less in person. So one of the things that's really worked well is, as I mentioned, there's more collaboration. So we're approaching things more with teams. It's easier to get people together in the room. So there are no longer siloed conversations between what we're saying, between what the business are saying. There's that alignment. And I think, the virtual environment makes it really easy to, get things more accurate. Whereas before, it's very, I'd say, you're trying to coordinate meetings where you're in the same place and it's not working, as smooth as it can be. But what that leads to is, as in marketing procurement, just more touch and more time spent with stakeholders, more connection, and it leads to more trust and credibility. And ultimately, it leads to a better deal. I mean, there's tons of great things we're doing around, focusing on the lifetime value and the cost, the acquisition cost of customer, to just have a different lens other than imps and, clicks. So just really getting to know the business more leads to a more powerful outcome with the agencies.
Yeah, and the excuse or the challenge of trying to manage flight and travel schedules goes away. So I definitely, I think we're all accessible a lot more now, given that most of us are remote.
Yeah, and I'd say the conversations are a lot easier. I mean, again, that connection through the pandemic, it allows you to communicate in a way that I think it's not new, but I'd say it's different. Tougher conversations are easier, if that makes sense, because you're building just personal connections. You're talking about, the first 5 to 10 minutes, are usually spent on, just talking about how life is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's the people, the aspect of it.
Absolutely.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you for sharing and thanks for being with us today. Rendi, I want to push the conversation over to you for a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind starting off by introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, thanks, Sarah. I'm Rendi Miller, and I'm the VP of Procurement at Zendesk. I've been there for about 2 years now, and lead everything procurement from AP all the way up through strategic sourcing, as well as travel and expense. So we literally see everything coming through just like everybody else. So, but it's been an exciting time to be there. The company is growing like crazy. And, as part of this whole pandemic, there's been so many businesses that have been impacted. And fortunately, the business that Zendesk is in really enables businesses and companies to be able to serve their customers virtually. And so I hate that we are the ones benefiting from this. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but it has really elevated our platform. And fortunately, it's given those small businesses the ability to connect and communicate better with their customers to, just maintain.
You are one of our silver lining stories. We need more of you in the news. And representing the Bay Area, Rendi, I think actually all of us are tied to the Bay Area here. So we wound up getting a Bay Area panel. Maybe NVK will be moving here sometime next year.
We'll let you in.
So Rendi, one of the things that I think is really interesting about what your team is doing at Zendesk is that you've decided to move your media buying and creative in-house. And this is a shift in trend I'm seeing with more and more companies, I would say, over the last 6 to 12 months. So why did you decide to make this shift, and how is it working for you?
Sure. So this shift started 2 years ago. So as I was coming into Zendesk, this was in the works. And I thought, I have never heard of anybody doing this. Why are we doing this? We're not experts at that. Why? And so I dug into it a little bit, and we had our performance marketing team had started doing a lot of analysis on, the ROI on our media spend, what that was looking like, what kind of return were we getting, and started thinking, I think we could do this internally. And so we took a chance, made the leap, shook hands with our agency partner at the time, and said, we'll call you back if we need you, if we fall flat. And then we went and we hired a person from an agency, not from the one that we were working with, but somebody who had that experience in her back pocket. And so I think having that level of experience on our team and in-house was really a benefit to us. If it was just, somebody new to media buying and trying to figure it out, I'm not sure we would have been quite as successful. It has been, it has worked out fine. Like I said, it's been 2 years now. We're not going back. We haven't felt like we're not getting the placements that we want. We're not getting, it's costing us more. We're not, because we don't have the buying power. We're able to be a little bit more selective too. I think because we're not, shoving media down, into the pipeline, we're a little bit more selective. And then on the creative side, that has been something that's been a little bit core to Zendesk. We have an amazing creative team. And we're really looking for consistency across the board. So from our user experience, what our customers see on the platform, when they're a user, to even just going out and checking out our website, to everything that we are doing internally, all of our communications has all been very consistent. You might call us control freaks, where we want to be in control, and we want to, of our own destiny, if you will, and feel like we've got the reins to do that, and we've got the expertise in-house, and we're pretty selective in who we hire and how we bring them in, and they have to be a good fit into that creative team, that they're going to add to the culture, not just fit the culture, but also be able to add to what we're doing, and take that, across the board in everything that we're doing.
Rendi, what tips or advice would you give to those that are listening today that are maybe thinking about looking at making this shift? It's a big decision. There's a lot of factors involved, and it's not right for every company. So
absolutely,
what are the main things that people should be thinking about when they're assessing if it makes sense to move it in-house?
Sure. I think one, you really need to look at your costs first of all. Are you able to is it worth it to pay somebody to do this for you, or can you bring that in-house and staff accordingly and appropriately to be able to carry out that work that needs to be done? Because when you've got an agency, you can just say, they're kind of coming to you saying, here are the things that we think where you should place ads and different things like that. So they're really pushing that on you. So you've got to have a staff and a team that is going to be committed to that, and be able to understand and make the right placements for you. So you've got to have the resources, and you've got to have the expertise. Also, from a cost perspective, there's probably a little bit of a trade-off to, staffing to, actually just paying an agency. The trade-off is there when you've got your staff in-house. They can do other things too, when necessary. Whereas, with an agency, you're just paying them just to do that. So I think that's the first and foremost thing, is to make sure that it's cost effective for you. And then very, very critical is to have that that level of expertise. Maybe go out and start talking to, some of those folks that are at your media agencies, and just, getting some thoughts from them on the in-house versus outsourced model.
And I think in figuring out where they're going to sit internally as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a operations function? Is it a marketing function? Is it a procurement function? What does that look like once you do decide to make that shift?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
All right, Rendi, well, thank you for those insights. I think it's something that we're going to see more and more companies considering over the next couple of years. So it's good to hear that you've been successful and are going to continue on that path. All right, MBK, we are going to shift the conversation over to you now. So if you want to start by introducing yourself.
Okay, so first of all, I didn't get dressed up like Jeff or Rendi or yourself. I'm wearing my Lululemon hoodie, which kind of gives away my background. But before I joined Coupa as the Chief Procurement Officer, I was at Lululemon for 4.5 years and led the procurement transformation there. And before that, I was at VF Corp. Originally from Holland. I always want to emphasize that. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
My fun fact. Rendi forgot to tell her fun fact. My fun
fact is I hate fun facts, MBK.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, let me know when I asked for them ahead of time.
Like, why are you not sharing fun fact? You're so much fun. There's so much fun fact. But my fun fact is I've done 200 miles per hour on a motorbike.
Wow.
And BK has quite a wild side. He has some other fun facts too. That
Free kids.
Have him share later.
Free kids. Okay. Or there's any judging. Go ahead, Sarah.
So MBK, one of the challenges we always hear about with marketing and marketing procurement is they don't work well together. Marketing's in their own world. They want nothing to do with procurement. They want to control their own budget and do what they want to do. So how do you suggest that procurement engages with marketing and gets their buy-in in a COVID world, right? It was a big challenge before. Now COVID has shifted everything.
Yeah, it's a great question. As you said, the biggest challenge that I've always had in my entire career has been with marketing, sometimes with IT, but for different reasons. But my learning with marketing has been, and whether that's COVID or not, I'm not sure if it's specific to COVID, it's just to never talk about savings. When you talk to a marketeer, you don't want to talk about savings or I'm here to cut your cost or reduce your spend, because then immediately the reaction is, oh my goodness, I don't want to work with procurement. I'm going to lose budget. And I think that's industry agnostic. I think that's COVID or pre-COVID or hopefully soon after COVID. So what I've always done and what served me really well is to talk about value. How much more value can procurement bring to the table by asking the right questions to your suppliers around scalability or risk or duration of your contract, or can we add more into the SLA? Can we go faster? Do I have the ability to potentially, yes, save money, but in exchange, just accelerate their strategic objectives? Maybe we can do more. So the line that I've used with marketeers often is to say, how'd you like to get 20% more budget? And if you walk into a conversation like that and say, hey, I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, I'm here to understand what is important to you, what you're trying to achieve, whether you're in a retail environment or a software environment, it doesn't really matter, or manufacturing. Marketeers always have the strategy that I want to resonate with as many people as I can. And especially in the retail environment, of course, that's often consumers. But it's about like, hey, how would you like me to help you accelerate your strategic objectives? And at Lululemon, I have tons of examples. It didn't always work out that way, right? I mean, I do have some scars along the way, as every practitioner should have. I mean, we should all, have a few scars in our journey. But that has served me really, really well. Just really emphasizing that desire to be a real partner and not just come in there, run a competitive event, and then be on your way.
And BK, one of the things I really admire about you is your focus on innovation. You're very, very progressive and really always looking at how can we do things differently? How can we do things better? Talk about an example or how you've had successes working with marketing to help them innovate.
Well, I mean, the one that always comes up for me is the story around shopping bags. I'll just give you it's very, very quick. Some of you guys may have heard this one, but everybody knows the Lululemon shopping bag. When I came in at Lululemon, I started challenging the cost. I challenged the supply chain, et cetera, et cetera. And very quickly, I got in trouble with our chief executive officer at the time that did not necessarily like me probing in the single biggest, most important marketing collateral that the company had and still has, which is Lululemon's shopping bag, which I'm sure most of the folks on the phone call here know what that thing looks like.
I think I have a closet full over
Some
here.
people may have more than they care to admit, like Sarah. And so the point, I'm going to get to the chase here because we're going to run out of time. But the point I'm making here is this. People started to challenge me and said, Michael, you cannot go after this category because it's very strategically important. And this can resonate with anybody on the call, yeah? And then I started to push back and did procurement work. I said, well, do you know where the bag comes from? Do you know what the cost is? Do you know who makes it? What do you know about the supply chain and lead time and everything that procurement starts to ask, right? And again, this can be commodity agnostic. And the short answers to all those questions was nobody knew in the entire company. And I'd been with the company for 3 weeks and I knew everything about this bag. It was single sourced, one factory in Cambodia that made 100% of the bags, 20 million bags a year, yeah? 100% of the factory. The only thing the factory did was Lululemon shopping bag. And it was 30% overpriced. So when I articulated all of that, the executive leadership team there was like, holy shit, we didn't know, right? Like literally. And they realized that procurement was there to de-risk the supply chain. And we took out $3 million. And guess what happened with that $3 million? We could invest that in omni-channel strategies, in our e-commerce. And one of the reasons is not just because of me, right? But one of the reasons why Lululemon is crushing it today, yes, it's work from home. Yes, we all wear Lululemon, but it's also omni-channel, right? It's digital. And so we uncovered resource inefficiencies that the company was able to invest into omni-channel strategies and execute the way that they do today. And that's what procurement does, right? It's resource optimization. It's not cost cutting. Sorry, I went off on a rant. I hope it made sense.
So Ernie's, you kind of answered Ernie's question that he just submitted for you, MBK, but he says, can you provide an example on how you can add budget or accelerate strategic objectives for marketing?
Yeah, it's about like for example, lead generation. If you look at Coupa, lead generation. You know, we got a pretty awesome marketing team. I honestly believe that. But you know, if I look at how we do lead generation, I think we have an opportunity to be more targeted in the way because that's really important for us, right? Is how do we get in front of the right audience and talk about Coupa and what we do. We have 2 customers here on the call just by chance, but that was not by design. But the point I'm trying to make here is like, how can I go to my marketing team and say, look, if we are more targeted, if we consolidate some of that lead generation spend and we spend it more wisely, the return on marketing investment is just going to be significantly larger. And that's the journey that we're going to be on at Coupa. Shandar, if you're hearing this, then, you know, we're coming. But that's what we need to do. It's like, how do we optimize that and how do we increase the return on investment?
I should have had some Lulu shopping bags staged here, MBK.
I thought about it.
Rendi, we had another question come in for you. Talking about, you were mentioning before about how you brought your media agency in-house and about looking at some of the cost factors. So the question is, can you touch on the cost and why it's not costing more? Typically, going through the agency provides much better media rates as they are buying for all of their clients and can leverage buying power.
100% true. There's no argument from me there, but you're also paying your agency as well. So when we brought it in-house, we might have been paying a little bit more for the actual media placements, but without paying that percentage or that you know, overhead cost to the agency, we were able to redirect that money to something that was more tangible for us in terms of our marketing spend and where we felt like we were going to get more for our money. So even though the actual media placements were costing a bit more, we still felt like we could take the rest of that and repurpose it into something that was more meaningful and more effective.
All right, great.
The actual costs, I don't have those numbers to say this is, actually, the difference in before and after. But it has, like I said, it's been 2 years. We haven't gone back. We haven't said this didn't work for us. It's working quite well and we're satisfied. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Jeff, aside from the traditional marketing procurement cost initiatives, can you share an area that your team is focused on that's having a big impact at Intuit?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on what Michael was saying. Value is key, right? I think a lot of times it's just getting past, you just want to save money, but this was the first time. We're probably in year 1.5 of our transformation journey. So this was the first year that we actually touched all our agencies, major agencies. And I think part of that was during the 3-in-1 year planning, we had the opportunity to sync up with finance and had an agreement that, hey, anything that we're going to deliver in this area, right, is going to be value. We're not going to have conversations about cutting budgets or anything. That's going to be up to the business unit CFO, right? And I think that alignment of actually, they're removing that barrier of tough discussions of, hey, what is your incentive, right? What is your pipeline? What's that number? What's that target you guys are looking for? It actually gave us the opportunity to be a part of the target, right? And I think that is a key strategy that helped us get to where we're at now. We're more up-leveled. We have this visibility of anything and everything we're working on to the GMs and also, the heads of marketing. So it shows what we're doing each for their business units and how it all comes together, and making sure, especially during the time of COVID, that everyone's getting recognized for the hard work, right? A simple yes can mean a lot, can mean, $7 million in value generated by just, allowing us to partner together. But that's kind of the traditional ways that we're driving value, right? A lot of the times it's not just looking at the fees. You guys all get it. It's taking a look at how you are making it more efficient and maintaining or increasing the quality. In a non-traditional way, one of the things that we are working on as part of the go-to-market strategy that's in the CMO's area is really our mission is to power prosperity around the world. And part of that is focusing on job creation and job readiness. So you may say, well, what does that have to do with marketing, right? Well, it's a key priority for Intuit, right? To be able to play in that area. So how does my team get involved, right? That means that we are front and center with operationalizing that, right? We're not just doing the deals with the agencies or the vendors. We are actually a part of looking at our spend across Intuit, right? And understanding what opportunities that we have. Other than customer success, we've stood up prosperity hubs in 6 cities, right? Where we've sent millions of dollars to distressed communities to be able to take $1 and turn it into, I forgot what the multiplier is, like $1.50, right? So that is something you can really get behind. And I came from, entertainment, right? And I feel really tied to making that happen. And so aside from the sourcing that goes on with being tied to the hip on the customer success side with job creation at call center, now it is how do we look at the rest of our spend and how do we identify partners, right, that we could work with to be able to put jobs, right, in distressed communities. So I think it's really rallying behind it. And we don't want to do this alone, right? The chairman is all for it. We want to be able to evangelize, the benefits that this has across all companies. We want to make companies want to be number one in this area, right? Because it's just the right thing to do. So that's non-traditional because you talk about cost, right? Savings, we get that on fees. We get value, which is media ROI, right? Focusing on LTV CAC. And then the third piece is how do you really a part of something that Intuit is focusing on really with its customers and how do you make that live? And it's just a really, really good thing to do. So that is a value proposition because there will be studies out there that show for every increase in gain in reputation, you will see that translated to shareholder wealth as an outcome of focusing on that. So it's just a different value proposition that in my experience is something that may be niche to Intuit, but it's very non-traditional. The value that you can generate from aligning with our CMO and Chief Customer Success Officer.
I love the name Prosperity Hub. So Jeff, we have a question from Michael. He wants to know, how are you sharing those details, projects, progress, goals, etc., with stakeholders and leadership?
Sure. So simple steps, basic steps, right? It is approaching each of the heads of marketing individually, saying, here's the total spend, here's what Intuit's spend is like, this is what your portion is. Are you open to some of these opportunities that we think we can chase? Some are for just you, some are for the entire company. So we make the rounds, and then we just say, hey, we should get together. If we can rally everyone around this, it's in alignment with us unlocking synergies across the company if we all work together to do it. And then it turns into a conversation of, well, you get the green light on some, and some you're just going to work on regardless, right? Because ultimately, if you're still working on the contract, you're doing it. So it becomes I'd say in the marketing area of our 100 sourcing projects, there's probably about 50. And we up-level that pipeline. We have a view by business unit, right? So in aggregate by business unit, and then we go into the different key projects that are in each of the individual business units. So folks can understand, okay, this is great for Intuit, but what have you done for me, right? And then we have case studies of what's changing, right? Other than just doing a deal proactively, what's changing? What's the mindset change? How are we really driving that transformation above and beyond just negotiating a deal, but really focusing on areas of performance, focusing on areas of, hey, we're doing this deal in corporate, but they are a partner within our products, right? A rev partner. So it's really showing a good sampling of those key projects and something that is transformative that will resonate with the executive audience. And ultimately we boil up the big ones, the really big ones that have really big impact, and we channel that up to the GMs. And then we ultimately will get together, my boss Emma will get together and have a presentation. So organically, it's not something that we force, like, hey, quarterly we have to get together. We didn't start there. We were like, let's organically make sure we're not wasting anyone's time and have folks ask for it. Hey, I want to see this monthly. Hey, I want to get together quarterly. So that's how it all came together this year for us.
In another conversation, we don't have time today, Jeff, but it'd be really interesting to hear about how you guys have structured your procurement team within the organization, because it sounds like you're doing some really cool stuff with the business.
Lean and mean. Lean and mean. If I had to get more headcount, I would, but I have an awesome team, as I'm sure everyone does, but yeah, it's the people.
Mm-hmm. So Rendi, there's been an obvious big shift in marketing spend this year, and the fact that people aren't holding in-person events. So we know that's had an impact really on everyone's marketing budget. But what other changes have you seen in marketing as a result of COVID?
Well, so I'll take a step back and tell you that Zendesk pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, as a company had very much a digital first initiative. We were just launching it. We were moving from, everybody has their desk to more of a neighborhood environment, a roam kind of thing, come in, you sit in, finance sits here, procurement marketing sits over here, kind of thing. Knowing that not everybody's in the office 5 days a week and things like that. So we also were, moving to a much more remote, split between in-office and remote. Now, clearly, we did not expect to go 100% remote. That was never the intent. But the pandemic has certainly accelerated that. And with events, like everyone else, everything now is is virtual. And so with this move to go digital first and thinking about that, and with, you know, this extremely accelerated timeline, we've really seen an increase and an advantage. I'm sure everybody here would agree that, you know, we're not having to get on a plane. We're not spending the extra money to go out and host events. So we've got so much more money to spend now when you're not, I mean, anybody that has negotiated a big marketing event knows the costs are just exorbitant that goes into it. So, well, it is, I miss being together, all of us, you know, in one place, and the drinks and the, you know, the fun and the networking and everything. From a value perspective, I think there's a lot more value that is being had in these virtual events. It's also a lot more challenging. And so there's a lot of things that, you know, you're having to take into consideration, and a lot of distractions that are coming up. So I think as we look at, you know, other than events, you know, what other things are we doing within marketing, and then, you know, just within Zendesk as a whole, we're really focused much more on the types of relationships that we're building with our customers, with our prospects and things like that, and really honing in on those things, and, you know, focusing a little bit more individually where we can, and just making that, you know, where you're appealing to the masses, we're now kind of honing in on small businesses or medium-sized businesses. And so we're starting to direct our focus, our marketing focus, more in specific areas, and really customizing to those specific business needs or those types of industries and things like that. So those are some of the shifts that I've seen in marketing specifically, outside of the event world, which, you know, clearly all of us, you know, quickly had to pivot on that and say, you know, what do we do now? How do we shift this and move into a more virtual space?
Rendi, do you have dedicated event staff internally, or were you managing that all through third party?
Nope. We have, well, I guess it's a combination of both. So we do have a dedicated events team. We've got a VP of global events. And so, you know, across the world, we were, you know, planning and coordinating events. And then we did work with third-party agencies that would help, you know, with the production, and, you know, for our large user conference, our sales kickoff events, things like that. Those were all partnered with a third party for, you know, the venue selection and, you know, some of the production pieces of those, and just the staff that goes into it. So that's a combination of both. And when we go back to some form of in-person events, we're still evaluating what will we need. We're never going to have, you know, those feet on the ground kind of staff in-house, because we're not going to be having events, you know, 365 days a year, just about like we used to. So it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how companies are innovating and doing virtual sales meetings, virtual conferences, and what that's going to look like. I think there's going to be a change forever. I don't think we'll ever go back to what we've been used to. So it'll just be interesting to see how the procurement industry adapts. I
agree 100%. And, you know, it was interesting because at the beginning of this, probably mid Q2, our CEO said, I think things are going to change forever. And I think, you know, the days of the whining and dining, you know, your customers, you know, from a sales perspective, and spending, you know, having these huge entertainment budgets for our customers, those things, we're proving that we can sell and customers are going to buy. If you've got a product, you don't have to convince them, you know, with a, you know, a lavish golf event or concert or, sporting event tickets. We all want to do those things again. Don't get me wrong, and we will. But I think we're seeing that it's really the product that matters and what you're selling or the service. And if that sells, you can take all of that money or a good portion of that money in that budget that you had for all of those entertaining your customers and give it back to them in a certain way, by either lowering, keeping the price of your products low or, even having a social impact. I think that element is gaining so much more traction now too. As we see so many businesses hurting, so many people hurting, and as a result of the pandemic. And so, even being able to up your charitable donations, as a result of some of that money spent, I think is really significant and impactful.
All right, thanks, Rendi. MBK, what shifts have you seen for marketing investment spend in the past 7 or so months, and what are you anticipating for next year?
Yeah, I'm gonna just try to give it a slightly different pivot than what Rendi was describing. I mean, obviously, a lot of what Rendi said resonates with, I think, everybody here. No in-person events, shift to digital. If you look at it from a Coupa standpoint, I mean, we've actually been running some adverts on CNBC, CNN, Bloomberg. I mean, that was something I don't think this company had ever done. We have a really cool video around lemonade. If you haven't seen it, it is actually really funny. So I would encourage you. It's like a lemonade stand, and it articulates how Coupa supports a child actually building a lemonade stand, and how that's no different than how companies should be managing their business spending to some degree. I think it depends on the industry, right? What we have the pleasure of seeing at Coupa, no sales pitch here, but we have almost 2,000 customers across industries, retail. I see Alex is here, with Peloton, and so we have a lot of different customers in a lot of different industries, and we've seen lots of shifts in spending just across the board, and not just in marketing, but just like N95 masks became a thing, right? All of a sudden we had to source new categories and new supply chain being disrupted. And so what has really been interesting for us is just to maybe take it a step back out of the marketing into your question, but more holistically, is that demand patterns changed and countries were in shutdown, and visibility became more important, and that was what we've seen a lot in our customer base. The level of procurement, and Jeff, I loved how you framed it up as well. The level of procurement changed, the positioning of procurement changed, and I know our chief exec has talked about it quite a lot, and we as a company have said, like, this is procurement's time to lead. And I don't want to go down on a procurement. I want to get too crazy here, but this has really been our time. And never waste a good crisis. We never wanted this. Nobody wanted this, to your point, Rendi, for sure. But we're in it, and this is for procurement, for those practitioners out there on this call. We've been waiting for this, right? And of course, we didn't want COVID, obviously, but we're here, we're in it. The community, the sense of community. It's been an exciting time to be in procurement, although, of course, again, this is not something we wanted. But and my first day was actually work from home. I've never met my team. I've met my manager once for 30 minutes. I never met the CFO is my manager. I never met Todd. Of course, I knew a lot of people at Coupa as a customer, but it's been an interesting journey, is what I should say. And demand patterns and all of that, it required just different skill sets. And it's been career defining. It's been a lot of different things, but it's also been rough. And of course, the personal connection. I love grabbing beers or your favorite beverage of choice and just socialize. And
you mean lemonade?
Lemonade. There's only so much socializing I can do with my 3 kids. Don't tell them. Sometimes you want to talk to an adult.
So Brandon put the link to the lemonade video that MVK referenced if you want to check it out. And I'm going to ask each of you guys a quick closer before we we shut out our panel and transition into our closing keynote for the conference today, which is Seth Godin. Super excited to hear him speak live, and he's got a new book coming out shortly. So my closing question for each of you is, what keeps you up at night? So I'll start with Jeff.
I think headcount, because there's a lot of priorities, right? A lot of resources on the high priorities, but what's happening is that everything else is coming to us, right? It's like all of a sudden it's like, hey, I have a revenue agreement, can you help? And you know, it's not 6 major or very few major things that are hitting us. So then, to me, then it's like, how do you, in a time of transformation, how do you show the ROI on additional heads or resources, right? So that's what keeps me up at night, because I love my team and I want to make sure that they're in the best position for their growth, right? And when everyone gets busy, sometimes, you know, you can't focus on that.
Rendi, how about you?
Well, I wish you had come to me first, because I was going to say something very similar. Not so much headcount, because I have an amazing team and I feel like I'm pretty well staffed, but my team is what keeps me up at night. And just making sure that in this very disconnected world that we're working in, that I stay connected to them, that they feel connected to each other, that just that their well-being is being attended to. You know, I think it's so important as leaders to really lead with empathy. And you know, there's so much going on in our world and in our country right now. It's such a pivotal and critical time. And then, MBK, to your point, this is procurement's time to shine. And with that has come a whole lot more, you know, people are coming out of the woodwork to say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And so just making sure that they're being cared for and looked after, roadblocks are being, you know, pushed out of the way for them, and making sure that they are staying connected. That's what keeps me up at night. Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Am I missing? Are there things that are happening that I'm not seeing because I'm not sitting with them, you know, every day and seeing how they're showing up? So that's what keeps me up at night.
I think it's really important that people don't hide behind emails and pick up the phone. Whenever in doubt, pick up the phone, check in with your team.
Yep.
NBK, we're going to close out with you. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more with everything that was just said. Yeah, so I could probably like echo it. Maybe the other thing that keeps me awake at night is risk. You know, what do I know about my suppliers? I'm still fairly new in the role. Yes, I work for a procurement company, but it's also a procurement company that has gone through incredible growth over the past 5 years. So have we really asked all the right questions? Do we really know where these guys, from an ownership structure and you know, tier 2, tier 3, being in technology is easier than in retail. Retail is significantly more complicated, as you can all imagine, you know, but still, what do I know about my suppliers? What relationships do I have? I'm not worried about Salesforce, right? I mean, but we have suppliers that, you know, provide contingent labor. You know, what screening did they go through? So that kind of keeps me awake at night, because of all this unprecedented change and all this disruption in supply chain. Do we really all understand what the future looks like? I don't think we do. We're all trying to figure out what that is. And we're all, you know, and I welcome everybody's input and feedback and support. And because again, it's community and all of us, but I mean, that's probably what keeps me, it's risk. Other than, of course, my team. I've never met my team either, yeah, in person. So it's really bizarre. But anyway, I mean, so yeah, it's the team. It's how do you stay connected with the business and in Zoom, and but then beyond that, it's probably risk, supply chain risk.
Well, thank you. So I want to give a big thanks to Jeff, MBK, and Rendi for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us today to talk about marketing procurement in the technology sector. In 10 minutes, we have Seth Godin closing out the conference today. He's a really, really well-known author. He's came up with the purple cow. So don't know if you've seen that picture, read the book before. Feel free to join us. And thank you all for joining the session today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.